Hola, muy buenos días. Les habla Carles Gaju, gerente de distribución institucional, y en nombre de BICE Inversiones les doy la bienvenida a nuestro webinar, el cual hemos titulado Hidrógeno, la fórmula energética del futuro. Hoy tendremos una conversación para entender la industria del hidrógeno y en particular el hidrógeno verde, cómo invertir y algunas características de este tipo de energía que cuentan con gran potencial hacia el futuro. Este webinar será moderado por Rodrigo Garay, jefe de estudios de BICE Inversiones, quien conversará con Dominic Schmaus, Product Manager de ETF de BANEC. Rodrigo es ingeniero comercial de la Universidad de Chile y cuenta con diversos posgrados en finanzas y en el sector eléctrico. Dominic, por su lado, tiene una licenciatura en Administración de Empresas con enfoque en finanzas de la Universidad de Ciencias Aplicadas de Múnich y SAIMA. Durante la conversación, como siempre, pueden ir dejándonos las preguntas que les surjan en el chat y de esta manera Rodrigo y el equipo podrán ir respondiéndolas durante la presentación. Con esto voy a darle la bienvenida a Dominique para que nos dé una introducción de BANEC. So, welcome, Dominique. Thank you for being here with us today. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy that I can explain a bit about hydrogen and share some insights about the topic and some details, what happens around the world and some cases for the future, some developments and an outlook, maybe, or a strategy, how you can target this with an investment idea. And now let me just share my screen. I do have a few slides. 1 second. As always, when presentation mode then does not work with the presentation sharing. Is it possible that you maybe share the presentation?
One second.
Thank you. Yeah, before that, maybe I can start without sharing the slides. I just want to give you some insights about VanEck, the company from us. VanEck was founded in 1995 and always focused on the identification of new asset classes and investment trends. And because of that, we always look for new initiatives and ideas. And in 1985, we launched the first gold ETF in the US, for example, to give investors opportunities to invest there. And in 2006, we entered the ETF space in the US, so one of the first movers here, and also opened the in Europe platform. So we are launching now UCITS ETFs. And also since last year, we really were one of the first ones to also go into the crypto space with our product offerings here. At the moment in VanEck, we manage around 84 billion in assets globally with active funds and ETFs, but also passive mandates. And in Germany, for example, or in Europe, we have 27 UCITS ETFs for active strategies. Now I see the presentation perfect. And 5 ETN strategies. I'm at the moment located in Frankfurt in Germany, and we have our main office in New York, but also offices in Australia with our colleagues in China and Netherlands and Switzerland. And yeah, main target for our offerings for exposures that investors have access to are natural resources or even now digital assets, emerging markets, and what we are talking about today, thematic investings, where we are also rather perfect. We just wanted to highlight we're still a family-owned company that enables us to really go fast and go into strategies that others maybe are not focused, and really focus on long-term products. And for the start, I would like to explain how we came up with the investment topic of hydrogen and what is our investment approach here. At VanEck, we are specialized in also thematic ETFs, and we really focus on trends that could disrupt the future and that will show future changes and also grow areas. And just to give you an example, we are well known for our esports ETF that has also long-term growth, or semiconductors, AI, smart home, Bitcoin minings, and so on. And for hydrogen, for example, our focus is to go into pure play products, for example, that really generate in space 50% of their revenues. So some, for example, always ask, why is Microsoft not in our esports strategy? Because they are producing the Xbox and so on, but they have so many revenues in other areas that it's just not a pure play company, and not worth for us. And we see those thematic ideas really for in a satellite portfolio, or with core and satellite, and we just want to mention that our ETFs are all physical replicating and without securities lending. And now I give the word back to maybe go more into detail about hydrogen and some questions.
Perfect. Well, first, Dominic, thank you for being here. And I want first, I think it's better if we talk about the importance of hydrogen for the world. And first, can you tell us how hydrogen is obtained and what makes it green?
Yeah, of course. I think could you go to slide 10? This could support to get a better understanding and help me explain what we phrase it, color spectrum of hydrogen, for example. So you said that there's the green one, but roughly said, I would say there are 3 different shades of hydrogen that are more well known. And unfortunately, currently, still most of the hydrogen is produced by fossil fuels, or with fossil fuels that is then so-called gray hydrogen. And the other form would be blue hydrogen that is also produced with fossil fuels, but the occurring CO2 is captured and then stored, so it does not go out into the environment. And what the future is, what you highlighted, is green hydrogen, so-called, and everyone is really focused on that one. And green hydrogen is created with electrolysis and roughly said pure water. And the main point is that it's used, so pure water and renewable energy. And the main focus is that it's renewable. And when using this form of, for example, wind or solar, then no CO2 is produced and we have just pure green hydrogen.
Perfect. So what are the main uses of green hydrogen, and in which industries could there be a greater performance or faster growing demand, in your opinion?
Yeah, so to start, to reach the CO2 emission goals, so green hydrogen plays a key role, and at the moment 20% of CO2 emissions could be avoided with hydrogen. Maybe you could also go to slide 7. I think has to answer the question helps a bit. So yeah, we have it here. So yeah, so, to be honest, hydrogen is not the holy grail at the moment that helps to bring the world CO2 neutral by tomorrow, but it will help really good to stop some issues like global warming, and will play a key role in the future to achieve the CO2 neutralism. Yeah, and to get some sectors. So the key point is it helps to decarbonize sectors where electrification is just not a solution. And yeah, to achieve the net zero goals, green hydrogen, as I said, plays a key role. And there are various use cases we see here, for example. So with electromobility, for example, and yeah, it can help to, for example, just to give an example, to decarbonize the ammonia production that causes around 3% of the CO2 emissions globally at the moment. But maybe could you go to slide 8? Then would be helpful. Thank you. So yeah, other use cases are to store the energy, but also it can help to, as I said, decarbonize areas like the glass industry or the cement industry. And most people always think when they talk about hydrogen about cars, but it's not really, I would say, a car topic, because there are, as I said, other areas where it makes way more sense to decarbonize those. And according to the Hydrogen Council, it will play, as I said, an important role in different areas. And as I discussed, the ammonia production, but also the heavy industry, where we see high percentages where hydrogen would play a bigger role. And yeah, some areas are, for example, the steel industry or the chemical industry and glass and cement, for example. Maybe go to slide 9. Thank you. Yeah, we see here the technical developments and how the technical development can improve and increase the use cases for hydrogen. So the graph shows the estimated or hydrogen broadly in the space, how long it takes to develop it, and where the potential is for the future. For example, in the transportation area, and specific fields are, for example, here trucks and buses, but yeah, ships are one case I can maybe talk a bit later, and airplanes. This is the goal, to really use the green hydrogen to fly only, or use this for future. And yeah, as I said, to store it, and there are so many ways to even heat your homes with green hydrogen could be a key. And that's roughly a picture, I would say, yeah.
Perfect. So emissions and decarbonization is a key issue, but also is important the costs. So how expensive is to produce hydrogen in their different forms and combinations, and what could be competitive in this market against fossil fuels, and when do you think hydrogen could compete with, I don't know, for example, oil, gas, or coal, and or do you think this green hydrogen could be a complement to natural gas during the energy transition, for example?
Yeah, yeah. As I said, the green hydrogen is produced with so-called electrolyzers that really use green energy and pure water, and the cost of those electrolyzers dropped by 50% in the last years, and it is predicted that the costs will fall a further 40 to 60% by 2030. And a combination of cost reduction, the decreasing cost of the renewable energy and those electrolyzers, and a more efficient tools or systems, but also an expanding of the life duration of those electrolyzers could also cut the costs of a further 80%. And maybe you could go to slide 11 that could have here. Yeah, thank you. So we also see some the development and the predictions how it will be in the future. And to just give you an example, as I said, I'm sitting in Germany, and we will getting a new government soon. So the Green Party will have a huge portion of the new rulers, and they just announced the plans that they will, for example, build new gas factories that will be a bridge technology for the future. But those gas factories will be able to use then hydrogen in the future. So when we really are able to produce green hydrogen more broadly, then the gas will be replaced by green hydrogen, and that's the goal, not only for Germany but also for really a lot of other countries in the world.
Perfect. So let's go back that we are talking about carbon emissions. So that's a key issue. So I want to know, what do you think about how big could be this market for reducing emissions, and also in monetary terms, like, comparing, for example, against oil? And when do you think is going to be, on when are going to be the most important triggers for this market?
Okay. Yeah, maybe could you go to page 5? That would be nice. Yeah, this gives a so what this is shows why we really use hydrogen and how the governments around the world see it and why they do it. And yeah, the energy produced at the moment with hydrogen accounts for 4% of the global energy demand, and that are 150 tons per year, and had in 2019 a value of $142 billion, for example. And yeah, as I said, hydrogen will help to decarbonize will help where electrification is not a solution, like steel industry, for example, and in general will help to prevent or hopefully prevent the climate change. And yeah, green hydrogen will, as governments around the world say it, will play an important role to keep the 2 degrees Celsius goals in this case. And yeah, in this area, hydrogen has various use cases, as I said, for the industry, for buildings or chemical industry. Cruise ships are a field, but also the production. And in general, as I said, we see governments around the world that really start various hydrogen initiatives. The EU, for example, started a big hydrogen project last year with billions of dollars. We hear it in the US. Joe Biden has, with his infrastructure project, supported renewable energies and increasing also the importance of hydrogen, but also going way further around the globe. So China, they have plans to make Wuhan a hydrogen city by 2025, for example. And yeah, we have some studies from the Hydrogen Council or the Bloomberg New Energy Finance Department, and yeah, they estimate so that the global energy mix in 2018, hydrogen had 2% of those mix, and they estimated that it will go up by 2050 to 13 to 24%. So that would be an average growth of 8% per year. So it's rather big, and it would mean that $11 billion invested in infrastructure, for example, would be needed to reach this goal for 24% of the global energy mix by 2050. Yeah, and as we see a lot of potential still in this area, we decided to launch fund our hydrogen strategy that targets this way, and that's why we think it's going to work. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit locally. How do you see Chile positioned to be one of the leaders in this market?
So not in detail about every country, but of course I also saw some initiatives around Chile, and I know they have also a national hydrogen strategy available. So several countries have it, but not all. And yeah, I learned also in Germany in the news, there's a hydrogen project has started in South Chile. I hope I pronounce it right, the Magellans. So there are 700 wind turbines planned that should produce green hydrogen. So not all, it's ongoing. So a few turbines already are out there, but yeah, it's protected to use those 700 wind turbines to then produce green hydrogen. And as I said, this just started, and it's important that this is I would say global initiative. So I know that Chile and Germany just also signed a document that they want to really work closer in the future. And yeah, I think the energy minister of Chile just said that there are in Chile 60 hydrogen projects at the moment being developed, and I think around 100 international and local companies are working on that. And yeah, he predicted that probably the price of the green hydrogen will be competitive to fossil fuels by 2025. That's the state of Chile that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's return to a global approach. So what are the biggest challenge for this industry that you're seeing in the short term and maybe in the long term?
Yeah, challenges, I would say. So the goal of this whole industry or sector is to prevent, I would say, the climate change and find a CO2-free energy solution. And there's always the possibility that someone develops a new technique that really prevents then hydrogen, but I don't think that is very likely. And at the moment, as we see the governments around the world really focus on the hydrogen projects, they think it is, but of course there's always the possibility that better technology comes out, but yeah, unlikely. And what's really important is that, as I said, it must be a global strategy out there. For example, when we only would look at Germany, that's not possible. To the area of Germany, I would say, is way too small to build or produce green energy. So we are also dependent on other countries, for example, like cooperation with Chile and others. And then it's the goal that really the areas where there's wind, there's sun, you produce the green energy and bring it then to places where it's needed without CO2 emissions. So that's key, that the cooperation works, but also that the political leaders around the world really don't, that they really don't lose the speed on those initiatives that they just started. But yeah, I think we are in good shape for that.
Good. So let's talk about the market and the attractiveness of hydrogen. So which of the companies that compose the Hydro ETF seem to you to be the ones with greatest opportunities for growth?
We could go to slide 16 if possible. That would help to see some names, but I have to say we're an ETF provider and not an active fund, so we don't really have the let's say the view, and we're not picking a company because we think that is super good or bad. We just really scan the market, and it is still, even globally, a really concentrated market, so there are not that many players out there. But just to give you an idea, we were not able to launch the product earlier because we want to have it pure play and not water it down with other companies. So we really waited until there are not enough companies that we can invest in and bring it out. But to give you some names here, so one provider is, for example, Plug Power. So they're a fuel cell producer. It's one of the bigger holdings at the moment. They're US based. Also opened its in Europe, their European headquarters, where they're really investing a lot of money, and they also just announced a cooperation with Airbus to work together, because Airbus has goals to produce planes by 2025 that will fly with hydrogen, for example, and they just had announced in the second quarter that their revenue had a surplus of 82%. So this is one of the interesting providers. But also Bloom Energy, for example, they announced that they got an order from SK Group. That's an energy conglomerate from South Korea, that they have got an order from them from $4.8 billion for fuel cell here. Or another one would be Power Cells Sweden. So they announced that they will produce a fuel cell for ships in mass production or series production. And to give you an idea, so Norway has the goal to have 400 ships that are running with hydrogen by 2030, and at the moment globally are only 20 to 30 ships out there. So there's a lot of potential to grow here. Or another one would be McPhy. They just announced a gigafactory in Belfort to produce the green hydrogen, and production start would be 2024. And it's not like hydrogen. I always refer that it's in the hydrogen sector. Those companies are not internet companies, so you don't develop an app or put something really quickly on, because there's really needed that you build factories, and it takes really longer time. So the time frames are a bit longer. Yeah, last one I would maybe mention is Source Power. They raised capital from a Chinese company, Waypower, for 50 million, and yeah, have a lot of money invested here. So yeah, so those are some names.
Well, in line with the last question, what provider do you work with for the stock selection, and if there are any criteria for this stock picking?
We work together with MVIS. This is our index provider. Could you maybe go a bit down? I could show you the criteria. Then I'm not. Yeah, that's the chart. Thank you. So we work together with MVIS here, and our criteria, as I said, we wanted to bring the product out earlier, but it was just not possible because we screened the market and there were not enough pure play providers out there. And we really focus always on companies that make money in this area, and our expert is here MVIS. They go into detail and really track what is going on in the space, and they developed a product here. So to give you an example, we just want to avoid to include companies like Daimler. They're also spending money on hydrogen, but they're just making so much revenue with other areas, or just also Toyota we see here, and they're just not pure play. And MVIS makes sure that we really have 50% of the revenue in a specific area. Yeah.
Perfect. So talking about the Hydro ETF, it has a recent start date of March 2021 in a year that has been challenging for the global economy. However, since September, it has been observed that its price has risen steadily. Do you think we still are at an attractive entry point to invest, for example?
Yeah, so looking at the current prices, I would say it's a really volatile area. So before we launched the fund, it has an amazing performance also in the field. So looking at the index and the companies, then when we launched it, the market was going down a bit. It came back, and now with the new corona variant, the market in general goes a bit down. But yeah, I would say stock picking in this area would be hard for me, but I think the concept of an ETF is way better because you have all the major players and are more diversified. And we just refer it to see it also as a long-term trend. As I said, we have the governments around the world with their initiatives in the EU, for example, or in the US, Joe Biden, and China again, that really are focusing on those projects and the infrastructure. And a lot of is going on here, and with the technical process here and the cheaper energy prices, I would say we have still a lot of potential in the market, and for future companies that, we believe it's a long-term trend and are still positive.
Perfect. So the key question here is, what investment horizon should we have in this ETF? What do you think about this long term? Maybe in, I don't know, years or terms that you think that it will be a good investment to be available, for example.
Yeah, good question. When we talk to investors, so I really see is it a long-term investment, so not below 5 years, and I would say, and more as a satellite in a core portfolio, because it's very volatile. and it makes sense to go into this market as, for example, with our hydrogen strategy to a broader approach. But as it's a new future trend, I would give it a longer investment approach.
Perfect. So in line or in complement with this, what other diversified investment opportunities do exist today in hydrogen, and why hydro ETF is the best alternative to have exposure to this market?
There are strategies out there. So in the beginning, we saw some nodes on the fields because, as I said, it was not possible to bring out an ETF because of the two less liquid companies. As we see on the slide here, our standard is that we have a specific market capitalization or liquidity and tests on the companies. And yeah, at the moment there, as I said, other products out there, but we just wanted to really wait until we could bring a product that is in line with our standards. So not including big car producers, for example, like Daimler or Toyota or Siemens, for example, that we see out there. And I think going into the space, I would really look into a pure play concept that is really focusing on the main players in the field, and that you really get the exposure that you want. So I always recommend to look under or in the holdings which companies are included, and that they really meet some criteria and focus on the field that you want to have exposure at.
Perfect. So do you have any other recommendation of ETFs from BANEC to diversify risk? For example, I know that you have a green metals ETF, the metals shaping the energy transition. That could be I think a long-term a shorter-term investment and a complement for hydro.
So the green metals product strategy we have in the US, right? We have in Europe, we have under the UCITS hood a rare earth product that's a bit similar, I would say, but this is an interesting field because it's kind of similar to the scope with hydrogen, as we said. So when companies or governments around the world are really looking into renewable energies, electric cars, for example, then you need all those rare elements like rare earths or green elements that are used for green mobility, for example. So when you look in a Tesla or so, how many rare earth materials are used there, it's probably or very likely that the demand for those will go higher, and we have also a long-term demand here to really get the future goals for climate initiatives. And I can talk about Germany, what we see here. So people in Europe are really looking at the inflation rates and what is going on, and we see interest in inflation secure areas like our global real estate product that is really going really well, or our older ones that the gold minings, but also nowadays our crypto strategies that are seeing more and more demand. So those are areas that a portfolio could be diversified with, and we see more demand also from the client side.
Nice. So what do you think, or which regions or countries have shown the greatest interest in this kind of ETF, in your experience?
In the hydrogen field, I would say when you look at the flows, it's mainly Germany and Italy. And in Germany, it's just because we always hear from our government, so in the news, that the focus in this area is so huge there. Billions spent in this area, and it will grow, and that also investors believe in the initiatives and are investing here. So the main area was really, I would say, Germany. Not only institutional clients but also retail clients are really focused on this, and the other area was Italy. But in general, we saw investors from all of Europe, for example, but also Asia that are looking into the product. But yeah, that's main ones, and it's still growing, the product, I would say.
Perfect. So I don't know if Carles or Alfonso have any question. So then we can follow to the audience questions if you don't have any complementary observation.
Go ahead, Rodrigo.
Perfect.
With the questions from the audience.
Perfect. So the first question that we have is to have competitive hydrogen prices, it is necessary to take advantage of economies of scale. But how can the world scale up to that? What comes first, the demand to support the supply, or a cheap supply to incentivize demand?
Yeah, in general, I would see that governments around the world really work closer together. When I said, for example, Germany and Chile, that they signed a contract that facilities for renewable energy are built in the countries that have the opportunities to have wind or sun, or for example, in Africa, it would be Morocco, that you have a lot of solar powers, or in the northern regions of Norway to produce that. And it has been the goal to really work closer together all around the world to build more and more renewable energy facilities, and then produce the green hydrogen where it's captured and stored, and then the amount of produced hydrogen will bring the prices down. But also we see governments or initiatives that really are looking into this field and the techniques and spending billions of dollars in the developments of new techniques and producing even cheaper hydrogen or in this area. And this probably will help to bring prices down, I would say.
Perfect. So I think, Carles, we have space for one more question. So I will select another one. How do you see the application of hydrogen in the automotive industry given the progress that electromobility is having? On the other hand, what is your opinion about the problem of hydrogen in terms of the risk of explosion in transport generally?
Yeah. For transport, I would say, so as I said, I don't see it at the beginning as most people are talking about hydrogen cars, but I don't really see it as a car topic, because in the beginning there are other fields where it makes more sense, like the steel industry and so on. But yeah, for the future, when you talk about transportation, I would start with bigger ships, for example, where it makes more sense. But with the progress and the decreasing prices and the technology, it makes then more sense, for example, with buses and trucks. So Mercedes or Daimler, for example, is working on that heavily. But also there are pure play truck providers out there. And in the car industry at the moment, the most car manufacturers are more focused on electrification, that's right. But Hyundai, for example, is working on that. And in the future, as hydrogen makes more sense because you have a longer duration where you can go. But in the future, I would say it could be possible that it goes same level with normal cars. But at the moment, yeah, that's right, that it does not make full absolutely sense. So I would prefer the electrification for cars. And the other question was on the risk area. So that's true that it could be risky, or the risk of explosion is there, but there's so many people looking into this field to make it more safe and secure. And I think the risks are being really low in the future, that explosion cases also can happen because of the technical developments here to make it really safe.
Yeah, so to complement your answer, I think also that hydrogen in ammonia production is solve the problem of storage and transportation. So it's less riskier than when it's not blended. Also, we have a couple minutes, so we can talk about a last question. So the last question is, as technology is being developed, are any specific innovation that can boost the investment in green hydrogen? Do you have any expectation of that timing?
Timing-wise, it's hard to say. So when you really look in the announcement of the companies, what they're working on, there's every month several new announcements. So there are newsletters I get every day, and there are a lot of projects going on, but I don't have a specific one in mind I could just share. So it's really worth to look into the field, because a lot of stuff is going on at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominic, for your time, your answers. I think they were very clarifying. So I will give the speak to Carlos for closing remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Rodrigo. It was very interesting, this conversation. There was a lot of questions, so thank you that those were answered. And thank you to all the audience for being here with us. If you have any comment, please let us know through us, through any of your executives. So muchas gracias a todos. En nombre de BICE Inversiones les doy muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Gracias, cuídense. Hasta luego.
Gracias.